Welcome to Bahamian Mathematics. To see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share. In today's video, we will look at identifying the parts of a circle. A circle has many parts. How many of them can you name? Let's look at some vocabulary when it comes to the parts of a circle. Here's a circle. Parts of a circle that you will learn are the center, an arc, the circumference, the radius, the diameter, a chord, a tangent, segment, sector, semicircle, and quadrant. Let's take a look at each one by one. The center of a circle is the exact midpoint of the circle. There it is, the red dot right in the center. It is a very important part of studying the circle. Let's take a look at the circumference. The circumference is the total distance around the circle. Starting at one point, going all the way around and ending up where you started, that outside part, the total distance, is called the circumference. An arc is a part of the circumference. It is a continuous piece of the circle. So any section of the circumference we call an arc. There is a smaller arc, which is known as the minor arc, and then the larger arc, which is known as the major arc. Another part of the circle is the radius, and the radius is simply a line segment drawn from the center to any point on the circumference. So here's the center, and there's the circumference, so that line segment is called the radius. We denote it with the letter R. Let's start at the center again and end up at another part of the circumference. That line segment, denoted as R, is also a radius because it touches the center and the circumference. Let's look at another one. If we start at the center and we go all the way to the circumference, that line segment again, denoted by R, is called a radius. So anywhere that we draw a line segment from the center all the way out to the circumference, that is a radius. The plural of radius is radii. So we have one radius and two radii. Radius is normally denoted by the letter R. The next part is called a chord. And in math, a chord is a line segment drawn from one point on the circumference to another point on the circumference. And so here's the circumference, and we draw a line segment from one part of the circumference all the way to the other part, and that is called a chord. Let's do another one. Here's the circumference. If we draw a line segment from one side of the circumference to the other, that also is a chord. And let's try one more. Here's the circumference. If we start there and we go all the way to the other side, that also is called a chord. Now, if you take a look, that chord actually passed through the center of the circle. This is given a special name called the diameter. So the diameter is a chord, but it passes through the center of the circle. So it touches the circumference at 2 points. And it doesn't only have to be drawn from top to bottom. We can start anywhere on the circumference as long as it passes through the center and touches the other side. From circumference through the center to the circumference, that is a diameter. If we go left to right, from circumference through the center to the other side, it is still a diameter. Now here's something special. We know this is a radius because it starts from the center and goes to the circumference. Here is also a radius because it starts from the center and goes to the circumference. But notice that now that we've drawn the two of them, it looks like it starts on one end at the circumference, goes through the middle, and goes to the other end at the circumference. What is that known as? We just learned that that was the diameter. And so the diameter is twice as long as the radius. And if we wrote that as a formula, we can say D for diameter is equal to 2 multiplied by R being the radius. The diameter is twice as long as the radius. The next part of the circle we'll look at is the tangent. And a tangent is a line that touches the exterior of the circumference at one point. Exterior being the outside of the circle, but only at one point. And so here's a tangent. You can see that it approaches the circle and then it touches it at one point and continues off. At one point, there's the one point it touches the circle. This is what is known as a tangent. The tangent touches the radius at 90 degrees. And so if we look at the center and we draw a radius toward where the tangent touches the circle, it always touches it at 90 degrees. Another part of a circle is called a segment. And a segment is a region. This isn't a line anymore. This is actually a region or space between a chord and an arc. So here is a chord. Remember, a chord touches the circumference at 2 points. And here is an arc. Remember, an arc is a part of the circumference. And so that space inside is called a segment. And now a special segment we will look at is called a semicircle. And a semicircle is a special segment bound by an arc and the diameter. We just learned that a segment uses a chord and an arc. And a semicircle, the chord that it uses is actually the diameter. Here's the diameter. It passes from the circumference through the center and out again towards the circumference on the other side. And the arc above gives us a region now inside we call the semicircle. Semi being half, so this is a half of a circle. So we can see the semicircle is at the top, and underneath there is also a semicircle. The next part of a circle is called the sector. And a sector again is a region, and it's a region bound by 2 radii. We looked at radii before being the plural of radius. And so here is one radius. Here's another radius because they both start at the center and end up at the circumference. And now the space in between is called a sector. And the last part of a circle we will look at is called a quadrant. You may have seen the letters QUAD before in the word quadrilateral, meaning 4. There are 4 quadrants in a circle. A quadrant is a special sector that is exactly 1/4 of a circle, and the angle of a quadrant is exactly 90 degrees. And so we know that a circle contains 360 degrees, and if we divide it by 4, we get 90 degrees. And so here's a quadrant. This is a radius because it starts at the center and goes to the circumference. And here is another radius which starts at the center and ends up at the circumference. And the section inside is called a quadrant. This is 90 degrees, and there are 4 of them in a circle. And now it's quiz time. Name the part of the circle shown. You have 5 seconds. Time's up. The answer is an arc. Question 2. Name the part of the circle shown. Time's up. This part of the circle is called a chord because it starts at the circumference and ends at the circumference. Question 3. Name the part of the circle shown. Time's up. This is a region that is inside of an arc and 2 radii, and this is called a sector. Question 4. Name the part of the circle shown. Time's up. We can see that it is outside of the circle and it touches the circle at one point. We learned that this is called a tangent. Number 5. Name the part of the circle shown. Time's up. Again, this looks like it is bound by a chord and an arc, and we call this a segment. Last question. Name the special chord shown going from left to right. Time's up. The answer is the diameter. The diameter starts at the circumference, goes through the center, and ends up at the circumference on the other side. And now you've solved the mystery of how to name the parts of a circle. Well done.